Hi everyone, let's talk about Weather Machine and things I think about Weather Machine. I've just finished a full two-player playthrough for Weather Machine. If you would like to see the game in action, it's in that video. It's linked in the description. If you watch this in a few minutes and you're wondering why isn't the game moving and why aren't they showing more things about the game, it's in that playthrough video. This is just what I think if you're interested in that. It's on Kickstarter right now as well. The campaign page will be linked in the description too, so you can see how you can get your hands on it and what the final thing will have. Although this should give you a good idea of that. Weather Machine is amazing. You can click off now if you would like. If that's all you needed, go for it. So yeah, initially, it's got little echoes, little shades of things like maybe Kanban or the Gallerist, and having these locations that you've got two options in and everything links together beautifully. Although you could say that about loads of Vital Lacerda's games. In having, you know, these worker placement spots that then expand onto more complicated things once you go into them, and having someone on the board that is moving around between the various locations. Although unlike Sandra in Kanban, Professor Lazif is not like judging us directly that we can see. He's not punishing us, he's not rewarding us, he is not moving of his own volition either. He just moves out once we move in, making space for us eventually. So yeah, like I've seen like mentions of things like that, especially with Kanban. It's kind of echoes of it. Really, it's its own thing, and if you see it in the playthrough, yeah, you don't really spend much time with the game and still go, oh, it's like one of those other games. It's got kind of elements, but very, very much its own thing. And I'd say, yeah, it is up there in complexity for kind of the rules, like with all of them. Like you've got a lovely little menu of a player aid giving you the steps of each action. I don't want to make it sound like it's massive. It's not as big as, say, Lisboa's menu. But yeah, you've got your step-by-step of each action, which is so important. The rules, like even in this prototype stage, the rules are fantastic. The player aids are fantastic for getting you to grips with it, because it is a game where, unless you are playing a kind of learning game where it's just do things and I'll tell you how the game works, which is a fantastic way of learning things, you've got a lot of overhead in it. There is a lot to say about these things and to kind of make apparent how important everything is. I mentioned this in the playthrough that Paul Grogan, who you can see his playthrough on the Gaming Rules channel, and worked on the rules as well. That's why they're so good. But yeah, it's a game of working backwards. You need to fix the weather. So how do we do that? Well, you need to do breakthroughs. So how do you do that? You've got to have published papers. To do that, you've got to have gotten research tokens from all these different places. And so you have to have taken part in experiments. You have to have put robots in there and there. And then working back, well, so you need cylinders, so you need this, so you need this. So it's a game of that, but I don't want to make it sound like it's full of kind of intense planning. There are often, what is so great about Vital Lacerda games, there are many ways of getting what you want. It's not as simple as, I need to be part of this experiment, I need to go to the lab, and I need to put a robot there. Well, no, why don't you come over to the government section and do it for free if that's still available? And even if it's not available, why don't you just get the token and then you can be in there next time? But I need to be in there this round. Well, you're going to have to go there then, and you should have planned it out better. There is so much scope for looking ahead, but as always, you know, the other players can get in your way. Unless it's bots that you're forcing out of the lab, you're going to have to make sure you've got a stake in it. I will say I've only played this game 2 players. The solo rules have gone up, I think, yesterday on Board Game Geek. Now, I don't have components to do that, so as of right now, I've only played this 2 players. I imagine it's going to be quite a different game at the other player counts as well. 2 players, you've got a bit more on your plate. You are probably gonna try and go for some different weather types depending on how much you're kind of piggybacking off, well, I see that experiment's gonna happen, so I need to get on board with that now. Or like gambling, you know, I am the only, in a 2-player game on these with 3 spaces for bots in their columns. You know, okay, so the professor's got 1 on there, I put my bot on there, but is the other player going to do that? The experiment goes off this round, so is it just a waste of my bot? And then if the experiment doesn't go off, that experiment tile gets thrown away, and then we've got to wait for it to come all the way around, or I just glumly pull my robot back, and that's the action that you get the least for if an experiment never happens. So yeah, there's a lot more stuff to do for yourselves. You can still get the robots put up here. You can still be putting your robots in the government, but there are only 2 of you doing that. There's still scarcity. The worker placement spots are very restricted, especially if Lazif is in one of the spots. You've got to go for probably the not great spot, but you'll get rewarded with vouchers instead for the future. Endgame triggers like the government filling up and R&D filling up, they are surely for a higher player count, because yeah, it's very unlikely that you're gonna kind of get that many bots and both be so focused on filling up one of those areas. So yeah, you're probably going to need some more gears, unless you're kind of joining in on the same types of weather, which can be beneficial, but you can do the things yourself as well. Whereas I think in a and the other thing is that in a 2-player game, Lazif doesn't seem to move very much. He still does. He might make a couple of circuits around the board. I feel like, and which makes the fact that he gives income based on how many robots you've got out, that's not going to be as much of a factor in a 2-player game, just because he doesn't seem to move very much. Now that does depend on what you want to do in the game. He's often a very good source of going to his space for getting vouchers. You get even more vouchers from being to the right of him in a 2-player game. But yeah, in a 4-player game, with even though there are more opportunities to go to the same location in a 4-player game, I feel that it's more likely that one of the 4 of you is going to go to the spot where he is, which advances him to the next spot, and will have him cycling on and on and on. The initial supply phase, where you are kind of tasked with, okay, well, I want a chemical. Which chemical do I want? I'm not really sure. I still kind of feel that way, and a lot of times when you're asked, well, you get to take a free machine part. Which color do you want? I don't really know. Later on, that might become really apparent to you, especially as you get your papers published, as you need to make your breakthroughs and your prototypes for your breakthroughs, and you see which gears are available. Then yeah, it's going to be a lot more set in stone and obvious, but it's more nebulous early on, and those decisions can kind of send you down paths that then start giving you a better picture of what you're doing. Like even though the subsidy tiles are always going to be the same ones every game, the fact that their positions are randomized, and that early on you probably want some form of extra action. Not that you have to, still plenty of ways that you can go, but very, very helpful to get both a bonus action that you don't have to pay machine parts or chemicals for. That's massive at the beginning of the game, but depending on where they have come out, makes a difference based on the vouchers that you will then get, that then make other actions more or less attractive. That you see, well, I've just earned a load of R&D vouchers, so I wasn't going to do it, but maybe, yeah, I'll just come over here, or maybe now I've got these to spend as substitutes for other things. Like that kind of unsureness. It's you still feel with getting the particular colors of things. I think that's kind of, it's either been prevalent enough or it's intentional enough that it's part of the executive actions of the game, that at any point, if you don't have the right voucher, spend 3 other vouchers to get the one that you need. If you don't have the right machine part or chemical, spend any 2 vouchers to get the right color that you need. And that can help you bypass some of the increased costs in it. As in the actions themselves, there are ways of getting the things that you need when you need them. It's just having enough quantity. The game is lovely and dynamic in its kind of arc. It's kind of shifting as we kind of perform these experiments, and the weather gets worse around the world, potentially worse and worse and worse, making things extremely expensive, easier to fix, and you'll get an investment tile if you fix it. But the increased cost, and yeah, maybe that's going to be a factor with more players doing it as well, that you're more likely to get to the extreme weathers. Although it depends what's going to come out in the experiments. But yeah, you see the weather getting worse and worse, and then it getting more expensive to do this. But at the same time, we are putting bots out that kind of ease that off. It's a lovely balance between kind of expanding your workshop and trying to get these machine parts in the right configuration, and then you get all of the glory for yourself. But kind of taking the time to put these bots out, all pretty much fantastic rewards in themselves, and making it cheaper for you along the way. And if you spot anyone else going for that type of weather as well, you are probably going to benefit from that, because although you can pay gears and bypass other people's bots and bypass them getting the 2 points, you get the 2 points instead. It seems, yeah, you probably, unless you kind of you'll be kicking yourself if you were like 2 points behind at the end of the game. But yeah, you can then probably use those gears to do something else depending on where you are. It's very kind of the end of the game sneaks up on you. But it can end in all of those different ways. It'll be a lot more apparent, if you just see that the government and R&D are full of robots. That's a big kind of clue. You can see the experiment pile shifting down, but it suddenly snaps in around 2 or 3 rounds left that this was it. All of these plans, and often, as in loads of great Euro games, you're just wishing for that one more turn. Everything could have been perfect with one more turn, but you don't have that. You are limited in this, so what are you going to do with what you've got here? The funding tracks work in a really nice way as well. That it's kind of a trade-off between you getting these endgame goals out that can be quite lucrative points, but it's all 5 points for each of them. But the more and more you get out, the more bonuses you're getting at the same time. You're getting the things that are kind of keeping you away from taking the supply action, which can be fantastic in its own right. But often, I want to be putting more stuff out onto the board. I don't want to be spending a turn just getting more stuff back. Just putting a goal out can give you the voucher or the chemical that you needed to be able to take an extra action. But as it says there's a really great tips section in the rulebook as well. It says in there, it can be just as good getting the funding from one of your tracks, where you might really want to race up one track. The science track is just amazing. They're giving you science wildcard vouchers, wild action points for anything in the future, and then pretend you're further up one of the tracks and take the bonuses from them, which could be loads of things in one great big go. It just all works together so well. It's good, as I said earlier. It's going to be that a bit of a hurdle to learn. I don't think it's as well. I know for a fact, for me anyway, it is not as complex as On Mars. On Mars stands alone in its own stratosphere of complexity, where there's all the times that I've played On Mars, I still have a feeling of I just need to be doing stuff. I'm not really sure. It will click into place in the end. And there is an element of that with a lot of Beatles games, but you can kind of see connections in things like, say, the Gallerist or Kanban, or here as well. You can see that, the assistant started there, and, this experiment here only needs one bot. So I'll make that the first one, and so now I've got a fog, and I can work from there. While being very different in its gameplay, I feel, it's still scratching that same particular kind of itch, that particular kind of crunchy, beautiful, interconnected gameplay, maybe a little bit more combo laden than some of Beatles' other titles, because especially the government action. The government action is just the best thing. It's great doing all of the other things as well, but when you can get, this gives me a free action, and then I can take this tile, so next turn I'm going to have this free action as well, and that's just going to be special for me, and it's giving me vouchers for everything else. Yeah, the way that these things can chain off, that gives me a robot as well, which unlocks this, that later on that gives me an extra action, so now an experiment's going to happen, which also gives me an extra action in R&D. It can just, not every single action is going to be like that, but the ones that just work out perfectly, it is just so ultra satisfying. Again, like a broken record with these deluxe editions, as well as the gameplay and the game design. Ian O'Toole has done an absolutely amazing job with the artwork for the game. I know that it's a more fantastical theme that people have been commenting on not being as into it. I'm into it. I couldn't care less about cars either. And I really like Kanban from the first time that I played it, as well as all the others with their real world connections. Everything that you're doing takes place in that theme, even though the theme is a kind of steampunky what if kind of scenario. It still fits into that kind of mold. That even though it's describing a kind of fictional, hypothetical thing, the rules are still giving you the kind of thematic reasoning for everything that you are doing. It still works perfectly in that way for me, and looks great while doing it. And I mentioned that this is a prototype, but it's an incredibly good prototype. It's a kind of production prototype, I think. Yeah, so if it looks anything like this, which, if anything, it'll look a bit better than this in its final version. And I can't wait for that. I can't wait to crack into a solo mode. David Tortsi, who did the solo for Kanban EV, did an amazing mode there. It's doing one for Weather Machine. You can see the rules on BGG now. It's going to have some more components, though. as I said, that's going to be for the final version. And this has got to go back to Paul. It's got to go back to GridCon. Enjoy playing Weather Machine if you are there. But yeah, I'm going to stop rambling now because I'll just keep talking about all of these things all day. Thank you very much for watching. The playthrough is there. If you still somehow haven't seen the playthrough and watched all of this, then that will give you a much better idea of whether or not you would be into Weather Machine. Maybe, I don't know, maybe this is the best thing for you. Maybe I should just stop saying that. I'm going to go now, though, and try and edit the mammoth playthrough down to some kind of watchable length. And maybe this too, maybe not. Thanks a lot for watching, though, and I'll see you for the next game. Bye, everyone.